From WSLS, this is 10 News at 6, working for you.
Tonight, flags across the country are at half-staff as the nation mourns former President George H.W. Bush. A life and a legacy encompassing a career as a decorated Navy pilot, several high-level appointments, and a presidency that saw an Allied victory in the Iraq War. The former president died late last night at his Houston home, less than a year after the death of his wife, Barbara. NBC's Chris Pallone takes a look at what people are saying about the first President Bush.
Across the country, flags are flying at half-staff in honor of former President George Herbert Walker Bush. In Kennebunkport, Maine, the loss is especially painful. The 41st president spent much of his life here growing up and returned to the family compound every summer.
They were really the most down-to-earth, amazing people you could ever imagine. That's why there's such a sense of loss.
The former president impacted many lives in his 94 years, and political foes became fast friends, like former President Bill Clinton, who tweeted upon hearing the news of Bush's death, "I am grateful for every minute I spent with him and will always hold our friendship as one of my life's greatest gifts." In a statement, former President Barack Obama wrote, "America has lost a patriot and humble servant in George Herbert Walker Bush. While our hearts are heavy today, they are also filled with gratitude." Traveling in Argentina, President Donald Trump said he called members of the Bush family to offer his condolences.
He was a very fine man. I met him on numerous occasions. He was just a high-quality man who truly loved his family. One thing that came through loud and clear, he was very proud of his family and very much loved his family. So he was a terrific guy, and he'll be missed.
In the same setting, German Chancellor Angela Merkel added that Bush is considered one of the fathers of German reunification for all his work to end the Cold War.
I, George Herbert.
For the nation's 43rd president, George W. Bush, the 41st president was first and foremost dad. On Twitter, he called him the best dad a son or daughter could ask for. The Bushes, a family, a political dynasty, mourning the loss of their patriarch today, comforted by those around the world who share their grief. Chris Pallone, NBC News.
And despite their political differences, George H.W. Bush and former President Bill Clinton shared a special bond. This is a look at the personal note that Bush wrote to Clinton as Bush prepared to leave the presidency in 1993. In it, Bush wishes Clinton great success and happiness and ends it by telling the newly elected president, "I am rooting hard for you." Clinton says he never forgot the words in this note. Leaders from across the Commonwealth have also been weighing in on the former president's life and the impact that he had on this country. We want to show you some of what Governor Ralph Northam had to say. President George H.W. Bush led a remarkable life marked by his devotion to his beloved wife, Barbara, his commitment to public service, and unwavering decency to others. May we all take a page from his book. Part of Senator Mark Warner's remarks said there can be no question that his highest commitment was always to our country and to our values, to justice, freedom, and the rights of human beings everywhere. Congressman Bob Goodlatte said in part, he led an amazing life of public service. He guided our nation and the world with his leadership during the end of the Cold War and the first war in Iraq. And Congressman Morgan Griffith had this to say: "Throughout his long life, George H.W. Bush served our country with honor and dignity." The former president and his wife spent much of their lives in Houston. Sion Rhodes joins us from outside that family home where a memorial to the president continues to grow.
Ever since news of the death of former President George H.W. Bush, there has been a steady stream of people coming here to his home in Houston. They've been laying flowers and taking pictures, coming to pay their final respects. This memorial started with just one bouquet and a small American flag. You can see it's since grown, including a much larger flag hung by a man who said, "This is Texas, so we're going to do it a little bigger for President George H.W. Bush." The late president calling Houston home since 1959 when he moved his family here. This is where he got his political start, first as the head of the local Republican Party, eventually launching a successful run for Congress. After serving as president, he returned here to Houston with his wife, Barbara, settling back in this same neighborhood that they first called home decades ago.
I think he's just a part of Houston, and he gave back, and he was a really great president. And he was a kinder, gentler Republican.
He was an amazing commander-in-chief, very level-headed, and the type of leader we needed at the time to bring all these countries together.
And President Trump sending Air Force One to Houston to pick up the body of the former president. He will lie in state in the U.S. Capitol starting on Monday. That is the scene from here in Houston. I'm Sion Rhodes. Now back to you.
Bush had several ties to the Commonwealth, including training on Virginia Beach for World War II and his tenure as the CIA director at Langley. And the president also surprised Three Little Pigs restaurant in Daleville in 2006 when he stopped in for a meal. This is video from September of that year when, toward the end of the lunch rush, the president pulled up for some sandwiches, onion straws, and a beer. The manager at the time says the president told him that his flight to Bristol got canceled because of the fog.
Pulled out a seat, said sit right here. By all means, take a picture with me, shake my hand, whole nine.
Yeah, and you saw he took a picture with a bunch of people there in the restaurant. The restaurant says President Bush picked up the tab for the Secret Service agents and an aide who ate with them. He also left a $50 tip. There's now a plaque on the seat in Three Little Pigs where the president sat. Families in Maine also have an extra connection to the former president. It's called Gary's House. Like the Ronald McDonald House, it offers affordable lodging for people who are undergoing treatment. For many years, Bush 41 helped support the house through the George H.W. Bush Celebrity Golf Classic. The hundreds of thousands of dollars raised through the tournament have helped sustain and expand Gary's House.
It's amazing how many guests come in and immediately notice the references to them. They'll say, does George W. Bush live here? Does he work here? You know, does he come here?
I am aware only because of the pictures in the house of him. I knew he must have something to do with the home, you know, and that's awesome.
George and Barbara Bush's daughter Robin was just 3 years old when she died of leukemia. Those who knew them said the former president and first lady always had a soft spot for children and families struggling with life-threatening illnesses. Funeral plans for the former president have started taking shape. The former president will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol this Monday at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. A second memorial service will follow at St. Martin's Episcopal Church in Houston. Bush will then be laid to rest at the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library in College Station, Texas, alongside his wife and 3-year-old daughter Robin. Coverage of the former president's death will continue tonight on Nightly News, which starts at 6:30. We'll also have more coverage coming up tonight on 10 News at 11.